Welcome back to Network Africa. Before the break, we're telling you scientists saying this year will be the world's warmest year. Climate change and environment expert Dr. John Osonwa joins us now on the program. Doctor, I'm glad that you could join us to explain all of this to us. What does it mean, and what do you make of this report? Warmer weather? How hot has it been?
Yes, it's a pleasure being with you again. We are facing the hottest year on record, as you noted. And this is on top of the record that was broken last year. In fact, we've had 10 consecutive years of record-breaking temperatures. And that is going to directly affect Nigeria in a number of ways.
Would you like we've already spoke about this, I mean, during the time when there was a report that was released earlier in the year, and we're talking about how hot it's going to get as we approach, as the rains leave and so on. But this is a major issue. Do you think the leaders at the COP22 meeting in Marrakesh are presently discussing how warm the world will be getting?
Sorry, could you repeat what you said?
Will this be a major topic for leaders at COP22 in Marrakesh?
Yes, of course it will be, because Nigeria is facing a number of severe challenges. For instance, the issue of Lake Chad. We have had a record shrinking of the water volume in Lake Chad. It used to be about 25,000 square kilometers of water. Now it's down to about 2,000, less than 5%. And that has directly impacted about 30 million people in that region who depend on the water for sustenance, for irrigation, for farming, for all kinds of, even fishing. So he's going to push to get funding. He's trying to see if we can resuscitate Lake Chad by bringing in water, pumping in water to add to the water volume. Also, you're looking at the issue of desertification in the north. A lot of people do not realize a major contributor to the Fulani herdsmen and farmers' clashes we're having in Nigeria is the fact that we have desertification in the north. We have about 20 million cattle in Nigeria at any given time. And there's not enough grazing land in the northern part of Nigeria for all that cattle. So they must migrate to feed. And of course, when they do that, they end up encroaching on someone's farm. So that is a major aspect of climate change that is going to focus on how can we solve the problem of deforestation, desertification. How do we regreen our landscape in Nigeria?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was just about to ask, what countries like Nigeria and the rest of Africa can do about warmer weather, because we always seem to be at the receiving end.
Yes, African countries only contribute about 5% cumulatively to climate change. However, because of the unique developmental profile of Africa, we have more challenges to contend with. A lot of us are dependent on subsistence farming, on agriculture. Over 70% of the population relies on agriculture, and climate change affects agriculture in a very negative sense. It leads to degraded soils, it leads to crop failures, it leads to droughts in some regions, as we're seeing in Ethiopia and other places. So because we rely on agriculture so much, climate change affects us. Also, we don't have the adaptive capacity in terms of technology, in terms of knowledge. So Africa also suffers in that regard. So what they are trying to do is to plead with developed nations with money, to put in money for us to be able to deal with adaptation and mitigation. We were making good progress with Obama. Obama had put in about $500 million into the fund, but now you have Trump coming in, who has campaigned and has pledged that he will not follow the track of Obama when it comes to climate change.
Well, Dr. John Osonwa, I really appreciate your explaining this to us. It does sound like the future really is quite scary, but I guess leaders will help us navigate the way into much cooler weather, hopefully, as we begin to deal with climate change. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Now, over in Egypt, riot police and armored vehicles filled the otherwise empty streets of central Cairo early on Friday as security forces built up a heavy presence in anticipation of popular protests over deteriorating economic conditions. A little-known group calling itself the Movement of the Poor has called for Egyptians to protest called them to protest over the weekend against deepening austerity. The calls have been made since August, but it gained traction on social media last week after Egypt raised fuel prices and then floated its currency, a move welcomed by bankers but bemoaned by ordinary people, as the latest blow to their diminishing spending power in the country relies on imports. Tahrir Square was empty, save for armored vehicles equipped with tear gas, canisters, launchers, dozens of riot policemen and high-ranking officers. Authorities shut down the Sadat metro station to prevent protesters from reaching the square, famed for its political protests. There was a similarly heavy security presence in other parts of Cairo, such as the Shubra district and in other major cities across the country, including Alexandria, Suez and Minya. So no protests in Egypt. Temperatures may be rising across the rest of the world, but that won't stop pilots of a vintage biplane flying across the country's pyramids of Giza. It's the second leg of the month-long journey through Africa. Watch.
A vintage biplane flew past and landed near Egypt's iconic pyramids of Giza on Sunday, the 13th of November, on the second leg of a month-long journey through Africa. The biplane from the 1920s and 1930s is just one out of 12 others embarking on the journey, which began in Greece on Saturday. The landing represented the first time an aircraft was allowed to land at the ancient site. However, the site did not have the capacity to host all 12 biplanes. The planes are recreating a route traveled by Imperial Airways, a British commercial air transport company that served the routes of the British Empire to its colonies in Africa during those 2 decades.
This vintage air rally is a wonderful opportunity to recreate what the great pilots of the years 20 have done in the past. And it's now also for us an opportunity to discover this wonderful continent and of course this wonderful country and this site in particular, the pyramids of Egypt. It's just absolutely fantastic.
The race, which is being held for charity, is expected to cover over 12,800 kilometers, with the oldest plane from 1928. The route ends in Cape Town, South Africa. The pilots will be challenged by the weather elements in open cockpits, stretching their flight limits with the long distances. They will be sleeping in sandy deserts under the wings of their planes in tents and on riverboats on the Nile.
So next step in Egypt, we will visit Luxor, we will visit Aswan as well, we will fly along the Nile, we will visit Abu Simbel, we'll also go onto the Red Sea, and then after that we continue on to Sudan.
7 modern planes and 3 helicopters will be flying next to the group for support. It is expected to take 35 days and 37 stops for the teams representing 18 countries, including Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, Russia, South Africa, the United States and Britain to complete the race.
I hope they have a lot of water to drink during this journey because it will be really hot. Thanks for watching Network Africa. I am Amarachi Ubani.